So it's being in Camelot all these years and watching the whole playing field has been quite bizarre, I have to say, and and a great experience, learning experience, and a great journey. I am going to be trying to get a book out about all of this. I'm sort of feeling like it might be a good time to do that.
Well, I'm sure it would be a very popular selling book because you've got many, many, many fans, and this is something they could buy 2 and 3 copies of and give to all their friends and family who's been skeptical, and I know you'll do a good job on it. So.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Come on. I have a lot of confidence in you, Kerry. Come on. I know you do good work.
Well, thank you. Likewise. And, I'm sorry to see that you've been sort of put out to pasture over here. I mean, that's probably overstating the case. But I have to say, I don't take anything as being superficial. And I don't know what's going on with you, over there. But you've got an hour cut out of your show, right? And you're also you had to get a full-time job. I mean, this is the story with the situation as we see it out there. I personally, because Michael Hastings was a journalist who was really going down the road of investigating the truth about certain things. I read his book, The Operators. I can say that he was very much in the mainstream. He doesn't appear to have questioned the paradigm. And so he got all his sources seemed to come directly from the mainstream, which is unfortunate because if he'd lived long enough, maybe he would have come over to our side, so to speak, and dug a little deeper. He was definitely the kind of inquiring mind which could have done so. And the information is that McChrystal, the general that some say he was responsible for having him relieved of duty by Obama. I think that's actually bull. I don't think his reporting had anything to do with him being relieved of duty. I think perhaps they used that opportunity to move him into another position. But it is an interesting dynamic that's going on with the generals. And there may be a bigger story there than people are really telling you, and that even Michael Hastings was able to say at that time. He could have been killed for what he could have known or was about to know, or if he put 2 and 2 together. In other words, because he became a liability, his reporting was just so honest that I think that they were having difficulty with the potential of someone of his level. He was winning. He won a prize for his novel. I mean, it's really a nonfiction.
You just inferred something here. And what you inferred was that Hastings had gathered data, but during the process of gathering that data, he might not have known everything he had and didn't connect a couple of dots. That would have been really, really awful for McChrystal, the other generals, maybe even Obama himself. That's what I just, heard you imply.
Well, it gets deeper than that. Actually, what's happening is, now this is interesting because, of course, there's a website. It's called Sorka Fall. What does it mean.com? I think is the name.
Yes,
of the website.
yes. I've been to Sorka Fall. It's some way out stuff sometimes, and other stuff rings true.
Well, right, but it is a Russian cutout, I believe they say. And so it's not really to be trusted. There's a lot of nonsense, a lot of spin on there, but there are elements of truth within it. And I guess we've got a break, and we'll have to pick this up on the other side.
I do hear the music now. I wasn't hearing it. But now I hear. We'll be right back in a few minutes. More with Kerry Cassidy. Stick with us, folks. Today is Tuesday, September 24th, 2013. My guest this evening is Kerry Cassidy of Project Camelot. So, Kerry, welcome back.
Thank you, Mike. So I just wanted to say that we were just chatting during the break, and I just want to bring this to people's attention. Then we go back to this other story, the Hastings story. But I just want to say that the state of Connecticut refuses to release Adam Lanza's medical records, okay? So we're talking about the Sandy Hook situation, and we're talking about a mind-controlled victim guy here. And we're talking about that it could cause, it says, the reason they won't reveal this information is because antidepressants he was taking could cause a lot of people to stop taking their medications. I was going to say, basically, those are pre-positioned mind control victims that are basically Manchurian candidates waiting to happen. And we've got a whole slew of them in this society and probably worldwide. They've been preparing the mental groundwork for this kind of thing for years. And that just cracks me up, that headline.
Well, it's one of those things you look at, if it ever was to hit the fan, and let's say our grid would shut down, transportation, electrical, everything. There's so many people on antidepressants right now that they would come off these things cold turkey, depending on how many tablets they have left in their prescription. Could be anywhere from a couple days to a couple weeks. But these people, when they need to be not depressed the most, are going to be the most depressed and will react very violently to this. This could be unpretty.
Yeah. It is. It's so interesting what's going on. I mean, just the gap. We were talking about Michael Hastings, and I wanted to bring people's attention to the Sorka Fall information because apparently, okay, look, I got some back channel information that I released on my website around the same time that the Sorka Fall information also came out. So whether we have the same source or completely different sources, whether they're both full of shit or not, I don't know. But there was talk in my information as well as in Sorka Fall's information that he was hit by a wayward drone that was redirected to actually hit with a missile his car, that it was targeted with a laser beam first and then hit with a missile from Camp Pendleton.
Well, Kerry, let me chime in here on this because I heard the exact same thing within hours after him being killed. That I got this from the Russians. I mean,
Right.
My guys over there that I talked to, they said it was a drone that took him out, and they fired a missile. A drone-fired missile is what destroyed the car, and that's why
Right.
the engine ended up 165 feet away from where it was supposed to be.
Yeah, something completely unreal. The fact of the matter is that he was killed. I don't care what you do with how he was killed and all this. And I know people that get into 9/11, they love to know the how, but they're not so good on the why. So, and the wherefores. So I tend to be more into the whys and the wherefores. The fact of the matter is it was a hit. The guy was killed. There's no doubt about it in my mind whatsoever. After having read his book and done a fair amount of research about him, everything that he knew, the fact that McChrystal came from Black Projects before he was assigned to head up the effort in Afghanistan should raise a lot of eyebrows. People in our sector should be aware that that's the case. And that being the case, you can imagine what McChrystal was really operating under. In other words, a whole different ballgame. And it's very likely as well that what's really going on in Afghanistan, which was described very well by Hastings in his book in terms of the sort of wasted effort, the drug trade that's going on there, that's basically run by the CIA, which he did not really get into, and he could have. He really kind of steered clear of that. Maybe he didn't want to become what he did become, which is, a numbered note with a target on his head. But nonetheless, what happens is you've got generals, and then Petraeus, they're saying he had a hand in Petraeus having to step down. I have to say, as far as I can see, the Benghazi thing seems to be wrapped up there somewhere. That's the word I'm getting. But it's not just that. I'm now hearing that there could be a link between the whole Promus software, and if you know anything about that story, I can go into that a bit. I had a guest on my show the other night, James, who you've had on your show, James Rothstein.
Oh, yeah, Detective Rothstein, great guy.
Yeah. Well, he's got some expertise in that whole area, which is the Michael Riconosciuto, what we call the octopus story, that involved the death of another journalist, Danny Casolaro. And there appears to be some link going back to the Hastings killing as well. So, I mean, it is important. People need to understand that if they can just take out a very well-known journalist right here in Los Angeles in plain daylight or whatever, or that, right here on our soil, this person was not even killed. There were not even collateral damage in Iraq or Afghanistan. They actually did it in plain sight here in the United States. We're really talking about a government that just has no proclivity to hide what they're doing anymore.
Well, you look at the chilling effect that a murder like that has on other journalists, and you look at the topics that you talk about, you look at the topics I talk about, and, I've been interfered with. I know this. I've discussed it with you at length at times, and, it really does make you look over your shoulder. I look under my car sometimes. I do things like that. I carry a .45 pistol with me wherever I go. Just things that you learn to do. But it's just But some of us won't be stopped. I won't be stopped. I'm never going to stop talking about this stuff until we bring these perpetrators to justice. That's what it's about. I locked on the 9/11 thing, but that's just me.
Well, yeah. I mean, I have to say, for me, it is really disheartening, I have to say, because journalists are out there trying to get the truth out. I get attacked every day. People, whenever I release an interview, like I've just released a couple interviews, our site is inundated by denial of service attacks nonstop. If you've come to our website in the last couple of days, you know that it's been operating very slowly. That's what happens when behind the scenes Tommy is fighting these guys who are bombarding our site with what's called a denial of service attack. What that means, it gets hit by automatic, some kind of hits from a certain address start hitting it as if they're new people, as if they're, in the billions all of a sudden. And it basically can take a website down.
Well, it overwhelms your capacity, and you can't respond. You can't let any more people on, so everyone else who is interested is locked out.
Right. And this is their payback. This is what they do when I release interviews. The good news is that when they do it, I know that I'm on the right track. Because what do they say? If you don't know, you're all over the target when you're getting flack or whatever it is.
You don't take flack until you're over the target. So know you've got something of interest.
Exactly. So I can tell you there's no doubt that what I've released lately is of great interest.
Hey, now I hear this break coming up here, so folks stick with us. We'll be right back. More with Kerry Cassidy right after this short break. My guest this evening is Kerry Cassidy of Project Camelot. Kerry, welcome back.
Thank you, Mike. We were just talking about how you seem to have become a persona non grata in some circles somewhere. Because they couldn't kill you, so now they've just relegated you to a 1-hour show, I think. You proved unbeatable in every other way. It's just, I don't look at anything superficially. It's just the way I've been trained to look at everything. So anyway, that's just
I'd like to think I'm that good, but I gotta be honest with myself and keep my sense of humility and honesty here. It's just I'm just determined to tell the truth as best I can, and my goal is not, this isn't for me. This is for my kid and his posterity down the line. A lot of this bad stuff that's going on in the world happened on our watch. People your age, my age, older people, and we have no choice but to make amends for it. We owe the younger generation at least a fair shake.
Okay, well, telling the truth is what it's all about. So I figure going down fighting on that score is worth living for and dying for. So I'm going to continue on this road. I think it's interesting to see that, according to this article anyway, they are saying that that Hastings had some extensive contact with Edward Snowden, possibly right before his death as well. That extends the situation, because I wanted to say here that what I hear back channel is also, and talking to James Rothstein that was just on my show, again, the NYPD, ex-NYPD detective, he was talking about Michael Riconosciuto, who built the backdoor into the Promise software and extended that software in such a way that it became something that the Department of Defense, the Pentagon, etc., all wanted their hands on it, and then they also sold it to other governments, Mossad included. And then they sold it to governments who didn't know that they included a backdoor so they could be surveilled. And it all gets into this, what appears to be a worldwide AI. And that's what Promise software is all about at the very, very root of it. So let me just finish here, because what the story is, and I don't know whether you've heard this, and I really want to compare notes with you here, even on the air mic, which is that Snowden apparently was going out there negotiating with the Russians, giving them access somehow to the backdoor to this software. That's what his offering was to the Russians, possibly something he was also marketing to the Chinese on his stopover there. And that being the case, you see, this links everything back to the whole days of the octopus. There's a book out there called, I believe, The Octopus Deception, which can't remember if that's fact or fiction, but it's based on all of this. There's the Sherry Seymour book, which is called The Last Circle. And there are a number of, you can just do searches all about the Michael Riconosciuto story. There's a short version of the Last Circle that's been on the net for quite some time. You can also purchase her book now. I believe it's on Amazon. That reporter did a tremendous amount of investigation into this. It all gets back to the drugs, to the trail of the money that funds black projects. So that's why all of this is connected.
Okay, well, let's back up to something, because this whole global AI. I just had a conversation day before yesterday with our mutual friend Baron Beretsky, and he and I were comparing notes on that, because we're both of the conclusion that this AI is up and operating, and we're seeing its influence in the world on an almost daily basis now.
Yeah, absolutely. No argument for me there. I've been on that trail for quite some time now. I actually think that there is a possibility that, especially to do with the killings in Colorado and then Sandy Hook, that there appears to be, I actually wrote an article about this. I think people probably thought I was crazy, but it has to do with what I call the battle of the AIs. Because what happens was the so-called perpetrator that was taken down in Colorado in the Aurora situation, his father was heavily involved, as people will have known if they did their research, with an AI level. He was helping to develop this AI that involves financial and insurance. And you've got to see how all of this links up to the Promise software, because the Promise software initially was a tracking software. I'm told that when it became augmented, it not only had a backdoor that involved surveillance, but it involves tracking in terms of weapons can use it, for example, long range to target. If 6 people are sitting around, it can choose which of those people's, based on their DNA profile, etc., you want to take out. And I've got that from a whistleblower. So, we're talking about something that is an AI and is extensive. There may even be some softwares out there that seem to be at war with each other within the earthly grid is what we're talking about. We have ET races, of course, that are more or less at war with each other. Some of those races are even at the top of the food chain trying to run things here on Earth. Their human minions, no doubt about it, are warring for the spoils, etc. But we do have a game here in which the sort of stakes are being escalated. As you and I talked about, we've got things that people are all these predictions about, October, the grid going down, and then some people saying November, and so far, I have not got that information coming in a way that makes sense to me. I can't see it going down right this minute, but I could be wrong. I'm not trying to predict the future here, but I think it's really interesting. I do think that we've got an escalating situation on many fronts.
Well, I think we do too, and I try to look down the chessboard and see, what's 3 moves out, what's 5 moves out, what's 8 moves out, and you get so many iterations on this that it really does boggle the mind, and it's just I don't know how to take all this because there's so much going on, and today, Preston James, who I know, I sent him an article about a new technology that's out that. They can use a silicon basis to duplicate what is essentially the visual cortex of a human being now. And sent that to him, and his first comment back to me was, well, they're releasing more alien technology.
Sure. Well, there's also the black nano oil, self-aware oil, which there's added information about that. I recently was in England and saw the presentation that Miles Johnston, who has been in the scene for quite some time, has done. He's been tracking that story along with myself on a separate trajectory and coming up with the same conclusions that this stuff is real, that it's out there in the Gulf for one thing. And that the Marconi scientists did die of it, that they were all taken over, that it has the ability to take over human bodies and operate them. And in the case of them, it was programmed to basically kill them. So they all killed themselves in the most creative ways possible. Not an area that you'd necessarily want to be creative in, but that's what happened. So, I mean, yeah, this is... It's important to be aware. It's important to be awake right now, and to have your wits about you.
Well, it's important to have your wits about you at all times, but particularly right now because, like you said, there's a lot of moving parts out there right now, and not all of them are synchronized. And one of the things I think that the listeners need to understand that you touched on a bit is there's competing factions out there. Now, whether it's competing AIs or it's competing ET races or whatever it is, but there's different factions competing to win the prize. And, the prize is all of humanity. So.
Absolutely. And, let's not sell humanity short either because it's something I emphasize when I speak. But look, they wouldn't have to spend all this time and all this money trying to dumb you down if you were easy to keep inside a box. The fact of the matter is they cannot keep you locked up. The genie is out of the bottle, and you're remaking reality as you go. So this is the good news, and do not become disheartened. Get off your medication if you're on some. That would be my first advice to anyone, and join the fight.
Well, truer words have never been spoken, and that's what I urge the listeners here every night to is get up off the sofa, do something, become engaged. Only the individual can think, only the individual can act, and so we all have to pick up our game because this is for all the marbles, folks. We're not going to get another shot at this for a long, long time.
Absolutely. Very interesting stuff going on. I'm not sure where your situation is at this moment, Mike. Have you heard from Duff lately?
I exchanged some SMS messages with him earlier today on another subject that is purely financial oriented, but it's I don't have anything new to report relative to what's going on in Africa or any of that. I do know that the Kenya Mall thing is coming out as being a staged event as well.
Yeah, that's just wild and crazy. Again, who knows what they're up to? We got to stay on this trail. Thank you for having me on the show.
Well, Kerry, hey, thank you so much for making time to join us. I always like having you, and you're always invited back anytime. Love to have you.
All right, thanks so much.
All right, hey, have a good night, folks.